Prevention of Damage by Pests Act 1949. This only covers rats and mice. So prevention of damage by pests, rats and mice chewing something. Local authorities have to have measures in place and resources to deal with rats and mice on their land. So the Prevention of Damage by Pests Act 1949 says that local authorities have to have measures and resources to deal with mice and rats on their land. Local authorities and landowners have the responsibility to destroy rats and mice on their land. Occupiers on non-agricultural land have to let authorities know if rats and mice are on the land in substantial numbers. There's no definition to substantial. If the person responsible for getting rid of the infestation doesn't do so by the time local authorities given, the local authority can get the work done and then charge the person for it. So the Prevention of Damage by Pests Act 1949 means local governments have to carry out inspections of the areas. People have the responsibility to destroy mice and rats on their land. Non-farming land has rats or mice. If non-farming land has rats or mice on there, they have to report it to local authorities. So, Prevention of Damage by Pest Act 1949. Local authorities have to have the measures and resources in place to deal with rats and mice on the land. Local authorities and landowners have the responsibility to destroy mice and rats on the land. Occupiers of non-agricultural land have to let local authorities know if there are substantial numbers of mice and rats. If the person responsible for getting rid of the mice and rat problem doesn't do so by the time the local authority is given, then the local authority can get the work done and charge for the money. Prevention of Damage by Pests Act 1949 means that local governments have to carry out inspections in the areas. People have responsibility to destroy mice and rats on their land. And non-farming land, if non-farming land have mice and rats, they have to report it to local authorities. Local authority action. The Prevention of Damage by Pests Act 1949 gives local authorities the power to serve notices of improvement if rice and mats infest the land. Give person responsible, they can give the person who's responsible for the problem, they can tell them the methods that have to be used to get rid of them, when it has to be done by, and any repairs that need carrying out. So the local authorities for the Prevention of Damage by Pests Act means that local authorities can serve an improvement notice if there's mice or rats on the land, tell the person the methods they need to use to get rid of the problem, and when it has to be done by, and any repairs that might need to be carried out after. Spring traps approval order. Spring traps must not be sticking out the ground, so it needs to be completely set within the burrow, penetrating the burrow. You're not allowed to scrape the earth in around them to cover them up, because they should be in the burrow. They need to be set so they don't get non-target species, and they need to be checked daily. So you walk up to the burrow and you put it in the hole and tap it so it's flush. You can't then scrape the dirt out to cover any up so it's not sticking out. You need to make sure they don't get non-target species, possibly squirrels in a tree. And you have to check them daily. The Spring Trap and Approval Order, that is. Food and Environment Protection Act 1985. The aim of the Food and Environmental Protection Act 1985 is to protect the health of humans, creatures and plants, safeguard the environment, keep pest control methods safe, efficient and humane, make information about pesticides available to the public. So Food and Environment Protection Act 1985 is to protect the health of humans, creatures and plants, safeguard the environment, keep pest control methods safe, efficient and humane, make information about pesticides available to the public. What is a pest? Under FEPA, that's the Food and Environment Protection Act, FEPA, Food and Environment Protection Act, a pest is any organism harmful to plants, wood or plant products, any undesired plant, any harmful creature. So a pest is an organism harmful to plant, wood or plant products, any undesired plant or any harmful creature. The Food and Environment Protection Act allows an inspector to enter any land, building or vehicle if pesticides have been illegally used, stored, sold or misused. They can also serve notice and obtain information. So Food and Environment Protection Act, FEPA, allows inspectors to enter any land, building or vehicle if pesticides have been illegally used, stored, sold or misused. And they can serve notice and obtain information. FEPA, Food and Environment Protection Act, gives enforcement officers powers to take evidence, for example, pictures, samples, statements from others, protect evidence, serve improvement notices, and a business has to carry out an improvement notice in a specified number of days. So an improvement notice, you need to improve, sir, and it's got to be done within a week. Serve a prohibition notice, saying that a business has to stop using something immediately. They can also prosecute. So FEPA, Food and Environment Protection Act, allows health officers to take evidence, protect evidence, serve an improvement notice, serve a prohibition notice, so meaning that they have to stop using a certain thing immediately, like food, and they can also prosecute. Corp, Control of Pesticides Regulations, 1986. Corp, Control of Pesticides Regulations, 1986. This makes sure that when pesticides are used, they don't harm people, pets, or the environment. Control of Pesticides Regulations, 1986, Corps. Regulation 6 is regarding the condition and rules set in advertising, supply, storage, and use of pesticides. That means that commercial users have to have training and guidance on how to use it safely, efficiently, and humanely. If not, then the law may have been broken. Employers need to make sure that employees are trained. Sellers, suppliers, stores, and users have to take responsibility responsible precaution in storing and transporting. It's illegal to supply pesticides that are not approved. Employers must give instruction and guidance to use pesticides correctly. It's illegal to mix two different pesticides together unless it's been approved. Excess pesticides have to be removed when practical and possible. It's illegal to use pesticides for any reason outside the approved reasons. So CORP, Control of Pesticides Regulations, 1986. So Control of Pesticides Regulations, 1986, CORP, means, it's the reason for it, is imagine a corpse. This makes sure that when pesticides are used, they do not harm people, pets, or the environment, like a zombie would. CORP, Control of Pesticides Regs, Regulation 6, is regarding the condition and rules set in advertising, supplying, storing, and use of pesticides. So a corpse advertises it on a billboard, come and buy. He supplies it, takes them to a storage unit, and then uses it, shows them how to use it. But this ultimately means that commercial users have to have training and guidance on how to use it safely, efficiently, and humanely. Otherwise, they're breaking the law. Employers need to make sure employees are trained. Sellers, suppliers, storers, and users have to take reasonable precaution in storing and transporting. It's illegal to supply pesticides that are not approved. Employees must give instructions and guidance on how to use it competently. It's illegal to mix different pesticides together unless it's approved. Excess pesticides have to be removed when practical and possible. It's illegal to use pesticides for any reason outside the approved reasons. Biocide products, regs, 2013. Biocide is a substance that destroys living things. So biocide destroys living things. So the Biocide Products Regulation 2013 is put in place so that these products are used. So putting biological products on the market are used to protect humans and the environment. And it makes sure that when they're used properly, they don't harm people, pets, or the wider environment. So the biocidal product regs 2013, which is a substance that destroys living things, means that regarding biological products on the market, they're used to protect humans and the environment. And it also makes sure that when they're properly used, they don't harm people, pets, or the wider environment. COSH, the Control of Substances Hazard to Health. COSH regs come under the HASAW Act, HASAW Act, which means Health and Safety at Work Act. HASAW, Health and Safety at Work Act, HASWA, makes a requirement to assess the need for using hazardous substances and provide controls to reduce the possible involved. So COSH, the Health and Safety at Work Act, HASAW, makes it a requirement for people to assess the need for using hazardous substances and provide controls to reduce the possible risks involved. So assess whether you need to use the substance, and if you do, provide controls to to reduce the possible risk. So when you do it, barriers, signage. Rodicides. Rodicides are in the form of block, grain, cereal, paste and gels. So the control measures for these would be you would need PPE so you don't come into contact with it. Liquid insecticides, these come as concentrates, and the control measures, you would need a high level of protection using gauntlet gloves and light RPE, which is respiratory protective equipment. Insecticides in dust and aerosol form. So the dust is flowable, so it will just go with the wind. So you need to keep it away from the breeze and moisture. The aerosols are solid or liquid particles dispersed in the air to control flying or crawling insects, and will flush them out of harbourages, hiding places. Insecticides, gels or granules. Insects eat them, and it has a low risk and generally comes out of decanting tubes, so you should just wear gloves. Cleaning liquids. The threats that can irritate your eyes and throat. Prolonged exposure can cause headaches and other serious health problems. Bleach can damage your skin and your general health, so you need to wear gloves, are the most common form of PPE. So again, rodicides seem to be eaten, so they come in the form of blocks, grains, cereals, pastes and gels. So a breeze block next to a grain field or some grain, Kellogg's, pastes and gel. Control measures, you'd wear PPE so you don't come into contact. Liquid insecticides, these come as concentrates. The control measures are that you would wear gauntlet gloves, long gloves, and light respiratory protective equipment, RPE. Insecticides that come in dust and aerosol form. Dust is very flowable, so it will go with the breeze. So you need to keep it away from the breeze and moisture. The aerosol are liquid. Aerosol is solid or liquid particles that are dispersed in the air to control flying or crawling insects, and will flush them out of harbourages or hiding places. Insecticides, gels or granules. Insects eat them, so insecticides, gels or granules. Insects eat them, so it has a low risk because it comes out of a decanting tube, but you should wear gloves. Cleaning liquids, they can irritate the eyes or throat. Prolonged exposure causes headache or health problems. Bleach can damage the skin, so you should wear gloves. Assessing substances. A competent person must assess each substance used at work to identify the hazards and the risk if someone is exposed. So assessing substances. So you'd need a competent person, like a holodextrist, you'd get the cleaner, to look at the substance and identify the possible hazards and risks if someone is exposed. You need to get the information you need by the assessment. You can check the following places. So the MSDS, the manufacturer's safety sheet, product label, legislation, or the product website. So to get the information you need to assess the substance, you would check the manufacturer's safety data sheet, MSDS, manufacturer's safety data sheet, MSDS, the product label at the back of bleach, legislation, or visit the website. So the manufacturer's safety data sheet, the MSDS, what will that provide? What information? It will tell you how to handle it, the safety profile, how dangerous or safe it is, how to store it, and toxicology information, which I don't know what that is. So the MSDS, manufacturer's safety data sheet, will provide you with how to handle it, safety profile of it, how to store it, and the toxicology. What will the label show? The label will show the hazards and how to apply it. So, warning, tip in a bucket with X amount of liquid. So the label will show how to apply it. Once you've found the possible hazards that this substance, whatever it is, can cause, if you can't eliminate the risk by possibly using a different chemical or method, you need safe working practices. So you need to employ safe working practices to be recognised to reduce the risk as much as possible. So once you've identified the hazards of this particular substance, if you can't eliminate the risk by using a different chemical or methods, you need safe working practices. Safe working practices are needed to recognise, to reduce the risk as much as possible. So some control measures could be use a less toxic product, use an alternative formulation, time of treatment to reduce exposure, integrated pest management approach, IPE, use PPE, think how long a substance should be used for. Consider where the product is being used. For example, is it an enclosed space? Is it outside? Is it in a ventilated area, a poorly ventilated area? So control measures for the substance you're using. So after you have decided with your risk assessment, you can't use a different chemical, so you need to use safe working practices. So some control measures would be using a less toxic product, using an alternative formulation, time of treatment to reduce exposure, integrated pest management approach, IPE, use PPE, think about how long a substance should be used, consider where the product is being used. So is it indoors, outdoors, ventilated, poorly ventilated? Hazardous Waste Regs 2005. So the Hazardous Waste Regs 2005, under the Environment Protection Act, all waste during your work is classed as controlled waste, and anyone and everyone has the duty to use, transport and store and dispose of it safely and legally. So the Hazardous Waste Regs, all the waste during your work time is classified as controlled waste because it could be infected and contaminated. And everyone, not just the employer, but the employee, has the duty to transport, store and dispose of it safely and legally. Hazardous waste includes contaminated PPE and wiping cloth, so your gloves and your wiping cloth, redundant pesticides and bait. So a bait station, but it's got a bit of bit of bait left in there. That's hazardous. Pesticides washing and contaminating bait stations, so contaminated of the bait station itself. And empty aerosol containers.